Johns Hopkins, Stanford, MIT. Big shout out to University of Maryland. There are people that I have met who seem proud of leaving college early.
Who was your first crush? First of all, talking about masters, because here in India we have bachelors of engineering, and then we some people go to the master's side. Those people who want to pursue masters, what do you think about masters and also skills part? Because some people believe on the self-learning part more. Like they want to focus upon self-learning, and they think that they can work upon a particular one skill itself, and they can be more proficient on that side. So
Yeah.
what do you think about masters and also masters in USA? So actually, I'm giving
Yeah.
a lot of questions to you, but
Oh, it's good. It's good. It's a good one. And my answer sometimes is a little biased. I left school early. Um,
mm,
I was in college, and I got a call to join a internet company in 1989. And so this was real early, right? And
yeah,
and it was a great opportunity, and I'm glad I did it. Now, um, you know, I certainly would have enjoyed being able to fill in some gaps. I'll tell you to this day, from a kind of a computer science, which is really where my focus was for a long time. I would say that there are certain gaps in my knowledge. Now, I'm not a
mm,
production coder. I my career path went in other directions. But at the
yeah,
same time, there's like this part of my head that's like, I really wish I got better at like, this chunk of
mm,
understanding computer science. And so it really depends on kind of what motivates you. I love learning stuff. During COVID, I started doing Blender, and there's that guy in Australia that does like like how to make like a donut and then you animate it in
uh,
Blender.
Blender Guru, I
Andrew
think so.
Price. Andrew Price.
Okay, okay,
I
okay.
love I love the donut. And so
Yeah,
I did the donut with 2.0, and then 3.0 came out and he did a new donut tutorial, and then 4.0 just came out and he did a whole new, he revamped the
yeah.
donut tutorial. I love that. Now, do I do 3D animation for my work? No, but I love so much that I learned how to do that. I do CADing. When
Mhm.
I was a kid, I actually learned how to do drafting on actual paper, vellum, I knew the dimensions of different mechanical pencils, like that's how I started doing things, right? So I
Yeah.
didn't begin doing CADing on the computer. I can do it. I can do in solid. I know how to use SolidWorks, but I'll tell you, just learning Blender made me think of how to do things in SolidWorks differently. So I'm happy that I learned that, and I love kind of jumping around. I managed patent portfolios at 3 different companies. My most recent company, I managed a portfolio of 38 patents, including what's called the prosecution phase, which is getting it granted and getting it formally. So I was working with the lawyers and making all those decisions.
Mhm. And
From the commercial side with the lawyers, and I had to learn how to do that, right? So I've actually gotten some really interesting training in terms of how to understand how to read a patent, but also how to write a patent, what goes in the claims language, how to make your most effective use of your diagrams. But then also, I even know how to like go online and read all the correspondence for somebody else's patent. And I can actually see the arguments back and forth between somebody trying to get their patent and the patent office, which gives you all kinds of insight because it helps you like learn how they convinced the patent office to grant their patent, or things that they
right.
said, oh no, we're not trying to do this, right? And so it was a great field of knowledge. I'm not a patent agent, but professionally, it's been really beneficial for me to do that. That all being said, um, I work very closely with students at Johns Hopkins, master's students. I've hired so many of those directly out of the school, several PhDs. I truly respect that discipline for really focusing on,
Mhm.
a specialty and dialing it in. And there are, even with some of the projects that I'm working on right now, this is, something that I'm working on at one of my companies. I need PhD chemists. What we're working on is complex chemistry. So, getting through as an undergrad is not enough. It's going to be sufficient. Maybe you can figure it out. Maybe you're crafty enough, but you just there are certain areas where you just need to have that disciplined formal training to say, let me give you an example with the robot controls expert. Especially with cooperative control robotics, coordinating all of those motors just for a 5 DOF robot is incredibly difficult. And the reason for that is I'm holding it as like as a cooperatively controlled robot. I've got it in my hands. If any of those motors are out of sync, I can feel it, and it feels wrong in my hand because it gives it a weird little gritty feeling. It takes me out of what I'm supposed to be doing with the robot. There are people with PhDs in controls. It's all they know how to do. and yet that specialty is so incredibly important. And there's almost 200 surgical robots on the market today, if you include dental robots. That means there's a lot of potential controls experts out there that are needed, and that's just medical, right? And then you've got people manipulating atoms and nuclear medicine and industrial robots and deep sea robots. There are so many incredible specialties where you really need to understand deep sea ocean robotics. There's all kinds of highly specialized. You can't just be like, well, I made it through junior year of college. I can design a submarine that can go down to the Titanic. No, you probably can't. So we need specialists. I have enormous respect for people who, for whatever reason, needed to leave school early. Although sometimes, knowing myself, I feel like I had a very good reason to leave school early, and I think my experiences in my career have been fantastic in spite of not finishing college. But there are people that I have met who seem proud of leaving college early. And then I kind of look at how they finish projects. I look at the kind of the details that they miss out on. And I'm like, maybe you need to learn a little bit more discipline by finishing college. Maybe that was your problem. It wasn't so much that you had a good reason to leave college, but you just didn't take that opportunity to learn how to focus and get something done. And a master's is obviously doing that. A PhD is doing that to a hyper focus, and I think it's incredible. And they're very, very valuable. So I will say now, not to disrespect a user interface software engineer, but do you need a PhD to do user interfaces? Probably not. Maybe it's harder than I really think it is. I haven't done a UI in a long time, but my point is that there are probably lots of professional areas where you can contribute incredible things without a master's degree, without a PhD. It really depends on what your passions are. They're at the same time, some of those, like I was telling you about the building the point clouds, the students that I've seen working on those are either just finishing their masters, or they're just that was actually their project to finish their PhD, right? These are people who are really dialed in on computer vision and coupling that with a specific clinical approach, skull-based. The challenges for how you would do that kind of visual-based navigation in skull-based surgery could be very different than the requirements for doing it in the spine or doing it in the knee. So I can truly see multiple PhDs out there who have developed techniques around vision-based navigation, and yet they're in different parts of the body because they're so focused on solving those problems. But you know what? There's 8 billion people on the planet that have skulls. So just because your PhD in skull-based navigated surgery doesn't help somebody with their knees, there's still 8 billion people out there with heads. So it's okay. So it really comes down to it comes down to you. I'm not going to be the one that says you have to finish your PhD or you're never going to get hired, because I don't believe that. But I do think that if you do leave college early, there better be a good reason for it. And in some, and even for myself, I mean, there have been times when in my professional career where I've just become a little bit loosey-goosey and have just kind of lost my own sense of direction. And I had to find that discipline myself. Now, you know, how many dollars per credit hours were, you know, would have been required to, you know, develop that skill in college, and would I have? I don't know, because I only know my own path. But you know, I think getting, especially in these highly technical fields, you're probably better off finishing college degree than if you're not. Just because there's, you know, getting a job, especially if you're younger, getting like your first, second job at like a surgical robotics company or an industrial robotics company, deep sea submersibles or whatever, if you don't have at least a basic college degree, there's a good chance that your resume is just getting filtered out by like some AI bot anyway, and nobody ever sees everything else you did. And I think that's sad. I think that's unfortunate, because, you know, we're people, right? Just having a bunch of letters after your name doesn't tell who you are as a person. But I also understand that there's a lot of people out there. There's 8 billion people on the planet, and a lot of people want jobs in the same, you know, fields. And so fortunately, human resources departments use a lot of technical tools that just automatically throw resumes out the window. And that may not be fair, but that's how it is. So, you know, if you're 6 months away from finishing your master's degree, get it done.
Right. Okay, so like that was really practical and a great advice to the people who want to get their master's done. And guys, just focus upon your studies and complete the master's part if you are doing it. Okay. And also, like, this was for the technical part, but the people who are into the management side, like the engineering management or the project managers, so is a master's required for that, or else, like, what kind of, or the experienced people are required in that field?
I think it's even still pretty easy to get kind of an entry level project management position or even a product manager position without an MBA or without a project management certification. That being said, if I got a job as a project manager, one of the things that you do to earn that PMP certification is, I think it's like 40 or 60 hours of actual documented hands-on project management as part of a project. So take the job that you're doing, document your work, and get your PMP. Because to this day, I will say that I am, just because somebody who's actually gotten, project management requires a lot of follow through on details. So when I am hiring a project manager, if I see PMP after their name on their LinkedIn profile, they're at the top of my list. And it's because I do know how complex project management is. I've managed some massive projects, and I know how difficult just keeping all those details and just continually following through. Sometimes there's a lot of documents. If you're really, I think the latest version is PMBOK version 6. And if you're actually following that massive book to the letter, That's a lot of documents. That's a lot of stuff that you're
Right.
managing details. And I think they're incredibly valuable, especially the larger the organization is. Um, so if I see PMP after somebody's name, it tells me that there's somebody who actually can follow through on high levels of detail management, right?
Mm.
So I am a
Right.
little biased. I'm a little biased for PMPs. Um, Product manager, on the other hand, it depends. It depends. Technical product managers, I don't think need MBAs.
Mm.
I've been a technical product manager for a large part of my career, and there it's
Right.
really it's being able to understand what the customer wants and being able to convey that to technical audiences and actually being able to define a product. Now,
Mm.
there will be times when you need to do forecasting, and there will be times you need to do some budgeting. And having an MBA certainly will have helped you learn how to manage the Excel spreadsheets and make pie charts. I'm just making jokes, but because MBAs always make the best pie charts. But it's MBAs will have those skills. Now, a line manager, which typically is a product manager that is over an entire product line, now you're getting away from the technical aspects into really more hardcore business management. That's tougher to do without an MBA. And in
Mm.
fact, I mean, most of that stuff, I mean, I do as a CTO, I'm responsible for a lot of those elements, and I don't have an MBA.
Yeah.
So what did I have to do? I had to basically learn all of those things on my own.
Okay.
And it's out there, LinkedIn Learning, greatcourses.com. There's all kinds of great books. You could just buy a freaking textbook on how to become an MBA. I mean, it's not like a
Mm.
secret guild, right? Where you
Right.
can't learn formulas um, without joining the guild, right? It's not like you can't.
Mm.
But it does mean you don't have a support system and you don't have other students to study with, and it can make it more difficult. So I had to learn how to do forecasting. I've had to learn how to, figure out all the different scenarios for what my margins are going to look like, and be able to write out pro formas, and be able to build my staffing budget, my equipment budget, and my cost of goods, and all those sorts of things. Um, how much of your cost of goods is also manpower? I mean, all those relationships, it gets really complex. Those are some
Mm.
pretty spreadsheets.
Right.
Um, and having an MBA really helps. You can get started though. I think there's a lot of opportunities, especially if you have a technical background. Becoming a
Okay.
technical product manager or a sales engineer, which is um, some product managers will get annoyed at me by saying this, but sales engineers are often indistinguishable from technical product managers. The work that they do can often be extremely overlapping. And so those are positions that you could definitely get before you have an MBA or before you have a PMP certification.
Mm.
So it's not impossible, but I would say if you have the option for getting an MBA. So I've got somebody who used to work for me at Johns Hopkins, got his master's degree in mechanical engineering, and then got into Wharton at MIT for his MBA. He
Okay.
was already a brilliant guy. He was already a really brilliant guy, had a really great sense of design. His professor would tell you that he was not always great at doing the actual math for his mechanical engineering, but he had a good intuition for it.
Mm.
Um, which, you don't want to build a bridge based on intuition, but but he knew what he was doing, right?
Right.
Um, and when he got his MBA, I'll tell you, it really changed how he even communicating, even having conversations with him today are just so different than how he was. He was always a bright, energetic young man, and now he just seems to have this just very well balanced perspective. He still loves the technical side. He still is just a very brilliant design
Mm.
engineer, but he also really gets business. And I think that's beautiful. And so it's if it's something that you have the stomach for, and if it's something that you feel like you could benefit from and want to do, either figure it out on your own, because even if you figure it out on your own, it's going to, like I was saying earlier, it's going to change the way you think, right?
Right.
And that can benefit just all by itself, right? And if you can get a formal MBA, yeah, it certainly can help put you into different kinds of job opportunities. There are definitely some companies out there, some really big companies, where you will probably never get a vice president title if you do not have a MBA.
Okay.
There's going to be a certain point where some companies will not promote you past a certain point unless you are just absolute walk on water brilliant. Just the chances are decreasing because you're going to be competing against other people for a VP that do have MBAs and also have a master's degree over here, right? And so that becomes your competition. So just again, it just depends. If you love solving problems and building stuff and then going home at night and having pizza and playing with your kids and your dog is a perfect life for you, then I say that's a perfect life for you. Decide really what makes the most sense for you. We can't all be vice presidents, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's not possible, actually.
And that's okay. And I really want to, I know we've talked about this before, but I think it's always important to remember that those titles are about job responsibilities. Vice president is not more important than you. If you're working in a call center and there's somebody with VP, they might dress fancy or whatever just because they make more money than you. But they're not better than you. They're not more important than you. They have different responsibilities, and that's the difference. And there are people who love that kind of perspective, right? I'm not in the weeds. I'm not having to decide which screws have the proper tensile strength to go into this particular fitting. I don't want to do that anymore. But I know what the product needs to be that's going to have those other engineers figure out which screws are the correct specification, right? And have that responsibility and being able to define that clearly and be a great communicator and a great leader of a large group of people, that's a great thing to do. But it's also not, some people just don't want to do that, and that's fine. But those positions, because there are fewer of them, they tend to be more competitive. And so, I will say, I think that even if you get a PMP on your own, and you can, a PMP certification is something you can completely do by yourself. I would say if you have the time, go for it.
Okay, so that certification is available online. Is that certification available? So is that certification available online? PMP certificate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can get a PM. Yeah. And you can just start with buying there's actually an international standard for PMP. The professional product manager is actually an internationally recognized certification. And it's based on a standard book that's about this thick. It's called PMBOK, PMBOK, and it's ridiculously big. But it tells you from beginning to end, this is what a project is. This is how you kick off a project. And just like one after another, all the steps are in there in that one book. That could be the only. There's also a million study guides out there and all that kind of stuff too. But if you go through that one book, that's literally all you need. And then you need to actually manage a project on your own, right? So there's an hours requirement. But even if you're a student, you could be managing a project with 2 or 3 other students, and in a single semester, you've burned up whatever the 30. I can't remember how many hours it is, like 30 or 40, something like that. You could use up those many hours and clearly document them as part of that whole semester's project, and suddenly you've got all of the requirements you need. Now you just have to take the PMP certification test, and ta-da, you're a PMP as well as a master's in
Okay.
whatever. It is absolutely doable, and I would say if you have the opportunity, I would recommend it. I really would, because I think I look at any PMP that I've ever worked with. They're always the ones I turn to. How do you kick this off? Would you do here? And I'm always asking them for advice, because it just they have a brain that has been restructured, and they think they're still incredibly creative people.
Okay.
Jeff, if you're listening, you're awesome, dude. They're very, very creative people, but they also they've got those Lego blocks in their head that they just know how to go through the process, and they could be in the middle of a desert and launch a project. They've
Right.
got it. They've got the skills, and it's in their head. And then all of the other technical skills that they happen to have, they go
Mm.
into that framework, bammo. They're incredibly amazing people. Any PMP, as far as I'm concerned, is a Jedi. So it's just that's how I see the world. I'm just gonna say
Right.
that. I'm very biased. Got a lot of respect for
Right.
them.
Right. So I think like we have got one new course, or we can say a new kind of certification, PMP. And also like, is there any specific website for that, or else we can just Google it out and get the certification done?
There's actually is one, as far as I know, there's one standards body that administers the test, and I think it's online. I
Right.
think it is online. So yeah, you just
Right.
look it up.
Yeah.
Professional product manager certification. Yeah.
Right. Professional product manager certification. Okay. And also, for example, if someone wants to get their masters done in US, because many of the Indian students go to USA for their masters to get their hands-on done on the technical side and also the management side as well, like project management.
Yep.
So, what do you think about it? Like, uh, what universities are really good in terms of the robotics side and also the management side, both of those?
Um, So obviously, I have a lot of connections with Johns Hopkins. I work with Dr. Russell Taylor. I know they have an excellent robotics department. I do also know that some people have gotten their master's degree at Johns Hopkins, and then they've gone down to like Georgia, which is called
Okay.
in the U.S. It's called the Research Triangle. It's between Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina. It's that area down there.
Mm,
There's a ton of defense contractors down there. There's a ton of really good, technical engineering colleges down there, and
right.
they have PhD specific, or they have robotic specific PhDs. And so I do know that, I don't know if this has changed recently, but I do know people that have left Johns Hopkins after their masters because they wanted a PhD that had robotics in the title. And Johns
Mm,
Hopkins, is a few years ago at least, unless they've changed very recently, Johns Hopkins didn't have a PhD that specifically had robotics in the title. So, but certainly Johns Hopkins is very closely associated with the hospital. So as far as medical robotics go, Johns Hopkins, Stanford, MIT, their associations with the hospitals really make those some of the best
mm,
places that you can go for a medical robotics
medical
related piece.
robotics.
But there are so many others. And then obviously big shout out to University of Maryland, which is obviously here in Maryland, but there's a major campus here in Baltimore. They also have a close association with a very large hospital network. In fact, the University of Maryland Medical Center is the #1 transplant center in the world, and it's also the largest trauma center in the United States, which is kind of sad that there's that many people that need emergency care. But this is where they go, right? It's an
Yeah.
incredible place. And I will say, and if there's anybody from Johns Hopkins that happens to be watching me say this, the professors have backed me up. Um, University of Maryland students seem to be a little bit more job ready than Johns Hopkins students. There are just, I don't know what the difference is. There are certain job skills in terms of like project management and understanding like the regulatory environment and things like that, that for some reason UMD students seem to be a little bit more savvy coming out as graduates than the Johns Hopkins side. Now, everybody at Johns Hopkins seems to love learning. Otherwise, how would you have even gotten in there in the first place? So it's not like I can't hire somebody fresh out of Johns Hopkins and teach them what they need to know very, very quickly. So so I will say nothing bad about Johns Hopkins, but I do mean to be very complimentary towards UMD. I think it's an excellent school. And I do know a lot of graduates out of UMD that I just think are just stellar contributors to wherever they work. They're top A contributors. So those are two ones right here in Maryland that I would say top dog.
Okay, right. Actually, that's great. Like you gave a great advice on that. And also, I wanted to ask one thing. One part is remaining. The fun part, actually, I had decided for this podcast, which I wanted to take it initially. But those are kind of rapid questions. Like you have to answer those in a few seconds, like 15 seconds or 20 seconds, let's say.
That's tough. Okay, here we go. All right, I'm ready.
Okay, yeah. So actually, I don't have a stopwatch. Okay, I'll just say.
That's good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There are some questions. Yeah. The questions could be anything like. So.
Oh wow! Just a mixed bag. All right, this
Mix one. Yeah.
Gonna be great. Okay, here we go.
Okay. I will just count on my fingers. Okay. Okay. That's a traditional method, but no worries. Okay. So starting with the first question, I think I have 15 questions. Okay. So is that fine? You have time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're good.
Okay. So starting with the first question. So if robots had feelings, what would they be afraid of?
Other robots. That's my thing. Because we build robots to do the things that human beings don't want to do. And so having a robot go kill another robot, I'd be more worried about that than any other person.
Right. Answered in a better way. Okay. Yeah. So second question is, okay, if you could have a robot to do one task for you forever, for lifetime, what would it be?
Mop the floor. Mop the, I'm telling you, man. And it has to be able to climb the stairs. If I walk around barefoot in the house, I hate sticky floors. And I hate getting out the mop and all that kind of stuff. Having a little mop robot like in the movie WALL-E that just runs around with a little roller and just mops the floor on its own. And I never have to push a start button. It just knows what to do. I want that.
Okay. That was really quick. Okay. Okay. So third question. What's the most ridiculous use of robotics you have ever seen or heard of? Ridiculous use of robotics.
I don't know if this really qualifies as ridiculous, but the iRobot guys that make the vacuum make a swimming robot, and as I understand it, they taught it how to swim based on watching a stingray, so it kind of like does this through the water, and I'm like, why do you need to teach a robot how to swim? And then two, I don't know, I found the whole thing just amazing. Like what's behind the decision that said we're going to spend money to make a robot that swims like a stingray? Maybe it's the greatest thing in the world. I don't know enough about it, but I saw that and I just couldn't stop laughing. I sent it to a bunch of people and I said, why?
Yeah. Okay. That was not really ridiculous, but like I also heard it newly. Like I was not able to really imagine that how it will work in reality. But yeah. Okay, anyways. So fourth one is if you could program a robot to make you a meal, a kind of perfect meal, what would it cook?
Wait, what?
If you could program a robot to make a meal for you, so what would it cook for you? Like the dish,
Ooh, Um, and I can't say butter chicken. So I just
butter
because
chicken.
because okay. Let's see. No. I got this. Okay. I want a sushi robot.
Sushi
Um,
robot. Okay.
yeah, it's got to be good sushi. Like it's got to be like the nigiri style sushi, the nicely cut, everything like that. There's a lot of art
Okay.
to cutting sushi, and the skill required for a sushi chef is amazing. And if you could take those skills and turn it into a robot, man, and if I had sushi every day, in fact, I'm craving it right now. I would love a sushi making robot. That would be fantastic. I would also be afraid of it because it would have an extremely sharp knife in its hand. And
Mm.
putting a knife in the hand of a robot and I make surgical robots, and I'm afraid of robots that can cut things. Um, that should have been my first answer, right? I'm afraid of
Right.
robots that have knives.
Yeah.
Sushi robot. I want a
Yeah.
sushi robot. Yeah.
Okay, so actually, I have to try sushi. First, the first answer said by you was butter chicken. I was really happy on the butter chicken part because I also love it. Okay, yeah. Okay, so the next fifth question is if you could turn any movie character into a robot, like who would it be and why? Like movie character.
I mean, the obvious one is Arnold Schwarzenegger, just because he is the Terminator.
Yes.
Um, it may turn out he's actually a robot, and we just never knew. So that's possible. Who else would I want to turn into a robot? Man, that's that. I mean, there's always myself. I would go cyborg. At least because my
Hmm.
knees are going bad. I've got a bad eye. I'm starting to get old. So if I could have a robot body, um, that still, the good parts that work, organically, because still want that, right? I'm human. Um, so,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it'd be kind of cool to see a really big robot. I also would love, this is the funny too. Um, I would love to have my own like little home bot. There's a new TV show on Apple TV called Sunny, and
Okay.
the main character has this little home robot, but it always has wheels. It can't go upstairs. And I live in a 4-story townhouse, and I take way too many stairs all day long. And if I could tell my home robot, just can you go down and get me a new coffee, please? Just go downstairs. But no, I have to have a vacuum robot on each floor because my vacuums can't go downstairs. So I would love to have a small little home robot. And I don't want to think about any actual person as my servant because that makes me uncomfortable. I don't um, I, um, but yeah, other than the Terminator, I think it'd be awesome to it'd be scary. Another thing I'd be scared of is, again, robots with weapons, kind of a scary
Yeah.
thing. But if
Right.
I was going to make a soldier robot, it had better look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's the way it is. If you're going to make, I don't care, John Cena, I mean, these are all big guys and stuff like that, but there's only one Terminator, right?
Yeah.
So it's got to be
Exactly.
any soldier robot. I'm not sure I really want to see a soldier robot, but if it's going to happen, it had better look like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, exactly. And also, it gives goosebumps. Yeah. And yeah. So the next question is one thing that you wish you could change in your past, like if you had a chance.
Um, when I when my 401k was almost entirely Lucent stock and Lucent hit $80 a share, I wish I converted every penny of my 401k to cash, even
Okay.
at low interest. I would have been done. And that would have been I would have been 27 at the time, and I would have had enough money in my 401k to retire. There was that much Lucent stock when it was worth that much when it hit 80, and I didn't do it. And the reason I didn't do it
Okay.
was because the .com culture made you think you were being disloyal. If you sold stock in your
Mm-hmm.
company, there was a company culture that you were being disloyal. Why don't you believe in your company? What, you think 80
Okay.
is as high as it's going to get? And so and this has happened to me more than once. And so if you have stock options and they're vested, um, they're compensation, they're there for money.
Mm.
And so at a minimum, and this is what I was taught, and I wish I had done it. If you have vested and you've got 10,000 shares that are vested and you can exercise them, exercise at least 50% of your vested shares,
Mm.
and take the cash, right? Put it in,
Right.
put it in some other investment or whatever, put it in savings and just have it. But your stock options are there as a part of cash compensation for you, not because you're never going to control the company from your stock options, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to
Right.
give you pretty control over your company because you have stock options, right? So they're there for their cash value in exchange for the hard work that you've put in. Exercise your stock options. That's what I wish I had done.
Right. Okay. That was more to the financial side, but yeah. Now the next question is like it could be the last one and also a more personal one, but but okay. I just want to ask one question like who was your first crush in your life?
In my life.
First crush, or else in
Uh,
your college time?
I mean, if we go far back enough, it'd be like Miss Sparrow, my second grade teacher. So it's that would go back there. More plausibly, I had a friend in college. We ended up working together for a long time, and she was always just such a great person. We never had any kind of relationship, but she was just she was a just a wonderful person. Definitely had a crush on her for many years, but yeah, there's been a lot of great people in my life.
Okay, that's great. Actually, you answered that question. Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
okay, so yeah. Also, like I wanted to ask one question. One last question. This is also one personal question. Like you
Okay.
mentioned earlier about your wife. So is it a love marriage or else arranged marriage or something like that?
Absolutely love. Absolutely love my wife, love my kids. Love my new
Great.
dog. I'm getting a dog today or tomorrow. I'm gonna go pick up our new dog. And so big
Okay.
crazy happy.
Wow. That's really sweet.
All
Yeah. So actually, we are at the end of the podcast. So yeah,
right.
thank you, sir, for joining here and being a part of this amazing second episode. And I'm really excited for the third episode as well. We are like stretching this, but if possible, I invite you for the third episode, which we will try to get on a different topic, which will be helpful for the audience as well as the wider community and the students. Sir, what you want to add at the end of the podcast?
Sure. We should have user questions. So the next episode can be all submitted questions from all your followers, and we
Yeah.
can chat on.
Right.
That'd be fun.
Okay.
I'd
Yeah,
be
yeah.
happy to do that.
Yes, yes. Why not? Exactly. I will try to collect the questions. And also, if possible, we can do one live thing as well, like LinkedIn Live or something.
Oh, sure.
We can plan
Okay.
for that as well. Yeah.